It's almost time for the Kentucky Oaks. The best way to play the Kentucky Oaks is to play it through NYRA Bets. Head on over to NYRABets.com. If you're not a member, no better time than the present. Use that promo code Derby25. We'll have the $200 sign-up bonus along with a free $25 bet for Kentucky Derby weekend, the Kentucky Oaks. And I'll tell you something, this was a group of fillies that as two-year-olds, they were a little bit questionable. They have really come together so far this year, and it is a highly competitive Kentucky Oaks, and one of those races where a number of good horses are not going to win. But one horse, in all likelihood, will get the victory, and we'll see who it is. In my opinion, the horse to beat in this race is Thorpedo Anna coming out of Oaklawn Park. It's her only prep this year, but it was an extremely good one. And I think unlike the Derby, we're seeing horses come in the Oaks with the one prep and do just fine. She absolutely dominated the field. Now, it wasn't a super strong race, and there were better preps. But she was 3 wide around the track, and she absolutely crushed the competition and went down towards the finish powerfully and ran a very respectable 91 Beyer speed figure. She'll have to run a better figure than that. But when I consider it's her only race this year, and she was wide the whole way, I just liked her performance a lot, and I consider her the horse to beat. I picked her second, but I do think she may be the horse to beat. The horse who's the morning line favorite is Tarifa, who's the number 8, I believe, in this race. Now, I don't have a major knock on Tarifa. She's run well both times this year. She should get herself a reasonable trip. She got a good post in 8, a better post than some of her chief competition. On the other hand, she has gotten the most delicious trips in her 2 races at Fairgrounds. And I just don't know that you can ever count on a horse getting as good a trip as they've gotten in those races in this bulky 14-horse field against better horses. And I do think you need to look at the PPs of the also eligible Our Pretty Woman, who ran well to finish behind her, and ask yourself, do I really like her in this race? And I just wonder if Tarifa's been beating up on slightly softer competition with very good trips. So I'm a little against her, and I'm also a little bit dubious as to whether she actually will go off as the favorite. Frankly, if Brad Cox didn't train her, I probably wouldn't have had her in my top 4 in here. Now, the Ashland may have been the best prep of any races. And Leslie's Rose, who did not get a good draw, as well as Just FYO didn't get a good draw. They got posts 14 and 13, respectively. But as I recall, Pretty Mischievous, who won this race last year, came out of one of those posts to get it done. So it's not exactly going to eliminate their chances, and they both ran very well. The problem is that Leslie's Rose got an absolutely perfect trip in here. And now drawing post 14, that's not going to happen. And she got a better trip than Just FYI. Now, Just FYI didn't have a bad trip, but she had a worse trip, and she was coming off a layoff. And the other thing is, with Leslie's Rose, you missed a chance to get 9-1 on a horse that had an excuse in losing at odds-on in her prior race. And now she's going to be half that price from post 14 in a much tougher race. So I think from that standpoint, Leslie's Rose is a bit of a last time was the time horse. One work since the race, whatever that means, I don't know. Just FYI showed that she could improve off of her 2-year-old form, and that's what she needed to do because she didn't run particularly quick figures last year, but she improved to an 89 Beyer speed figure. First start for her. She missed the Devona Dale with being sick. 2 works going into the Ashland. She can step forward and do well here, and I do think that she is a major player, and I prefer her of the 2 horses that ran 1-2 in the Ashland. Let's go down to the Gulfstream Oaks, though, where Power Squeeze got about as fortunate as a horse could get to win a race, a perfect draw, a fast pace, an easy trip. And I'm suspect of whether or not she can even produce that sort of surprisingly good effort, even with that kind of trip, at Gulfstream Park. Can she reproduce that at Churchill Downs? Ways and Means, who probably was the most talented 2-year-old filly we saw in the country last year. Unfortunately, she had a very bad start and trouble in the spin-away that cost the race. She was injured. She was out after that. Ways and Means ran brilliantly in here. A tactical error was made early with her when for some reason they sort of grabbed her out of the gate and didn't want to be forward. When you're the heavy favorite and you have a target in your back, it's never really a great plan in a big field. She got buffeted around, shuffled out of position. At that point, I think Irad Ortiz realized, I just need to get her into position. She made this big 4-5 wide brush on the backstretch right up on top of a pace that ultimately collapsed. Big surprise, she got a little tired late and finished second behind a horse that got a perfect trip. But close your eyes and imagine that Power Squeeze wasn't in that race. And Ways and Means got that preposterous trip, got a 90 Beyer and won by 5 3/4 lengths. She'd be favored in here. and she probably should be favored. So for that reason, being that she won't be favored, she's going to be my top choice in this race. Where's My Ring and Regulatory Risk coming out of the Gazelle? Once again, I'm going to root for the home team, and I always want to see the horses that do well here at NYRA do well in the big races. And I do think that Where's My Ring is a talented horse. The problem is she's another horse, sort of like Resilience in the Wood, that got an absolute dream trip. Perfect draw on the rail, perfect trip stalking behind horses and closing. I worry that she's going to be involved in a pace this time that's going to be a little bit hot. She got a great trip last time. The positive are she is improving, and I think that will help her. She drew well towards the inside, but I worry the pace might get hot for her. The competition is much, much steeper. As far as Regulatory Risk, obviously she has to improve dramatically. The only reason you might want to give her another look is, why is Chad Brown running her in here? He hadn't initially intended to run her in here, even though she qualified. It helped Ways and Means get in the race, and because she's training well enough, he feels it's worth taking a shot in here. So maybe she'll run better than you expect. She really does need to improve. Others I haven't mentioned that might be worth a throw. If you think the pace is going to be particularly fast here and the race falls apart, maybe a horse like Jin Jin could pick up pieces. She will, though, need to improve. She's just not that fast. There's really nobody else that interests me here. I've got Ways and Means, the 11 on top. The number 5, Thorpedo Anna, second. The 13, Just FYI, third. And the 8, Tarifa, fourth in this Kentucky Oaks. If you want to play the Kentucky Oaks, you want to play any races, play them through NYRA Bets. Head on over to NYRABets.com. Use the promo code Derby25. We'll match up to $200 of your initial deposit and give you a free $25 bet for Derby weekend.